เดี๋ยวเรามาเจอกับท่านวิทยากรของเราค่ะกับหัวข้อนะคะ Why Corporate Should Like Startup from Director of Ciputra Incubator and Accelerator ค่ะ Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our expert speaker, Mr. Ivan Sandjaja. Please welcome.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So, welcome to the session that I will lead you for the next 45 minutes. I will be speaking about a new corporate culture, which is the entrepreneurship culture. But before we begin this discussion, I also want to highlight that it is very important for companies to embrace this entrepreneurship because many companies don't even believe in that because they don't know what it actually means to them. Speaking of entrepreneurship or entrepreneur by itself, we often think that it is people with business, but it is not because you can have a business but yet you're not an entrepreneur. Because entrepreneurship is about mindset, yeah? It's about the way you perceive things. Based on our definition, working definition, an entrepreneur is someone who have the habit to constantly create and innovate. So if you are always creative and innovative, then you are an entrepreneur, even though you don't have a business yet. Or if you work for a company, or if you work for the government. But if you have the mindset that is always creating and innovating, then you are an entrepreneur. On the other hand, if you have a business, but you don't have the habit to create and innovate, then you're not an entrepreneur, you're just someone with a business. We have seen many, I'm sure also here in Thailand, that people have businesses for generations, but their business never grow. They have maybe one shop. And with that one shop, they can actually have a nice life. They can send their children to school, to university, but that's it. They will never have the second shop. They never expand the shop to other places, other cities. Why? Because they're not real entrepreneur. But also, when you work for a company, you can still be an entrepreneur. Now, what does that mean? Okay. In most common term, we see now entrepreneurship is the buzzword. You know, when you're young, you just graduated from college, you want to start up your own business, you want to make your own money, be your own boss, be the founder of a startup company, and eventually that startup company will become a big company. But by definition, a startup is not a smaller version of a big company. Or in the other hand, you can also say that a larger company is not just a large version of a startup. Because if you look at the list of the most innovative companies in the world, for the past decades, they've been dominated by companies that didn't even exist 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Here are there. The first one is Apple, Google, Tesla, Microsoft. Interestingly, if you look at this list, how many of them are actually the old players? There's still some companies like Coca-Cola or maybe like DuPont or, Bayer. But if you look at here, number 17, Uber, right? Or 21, Airbnb, or our biggest sponsor, maybe Huawei, number 46. Yeah? It didn't even exist 10 years ago, right? But yet they become one of the most innovative company in the world. Why is that? How could that happen? Let's take a look at the definition once again. A startup company or a younger entrepreneurial firm are considered more innovative. They are born from new idea, survive by finding creative ways to make it commercially viable. On the other hand, larger, well-rooted companies have also huge motivation to be innovative and certainly have resources for that, but unfortunately, innovation is not always thriving in mature organizations. Why is that? Yeah? Or for most companies, innovation only happens by exception or heroic effects, not necessarily by design. Why is that? Here's the answer. Every policy and procedure that makes corporation efficient execution machine, they stifle the innovation. According to Steve Blank, one of the experts in innovation, innovation is chaotic, messy, and uncertain. And you need to have a different tool that is radical to measure and control them. When we look at the focus between startups and mature companies, what's the difference between the two? The focus of a larger established companies is actually to execute existing business model. They already have a business model. So they will execute them and make sure they operate efficiently and satisfy their customers. But that is not the focus of startup companies. Startup companies try to find a workable business model. Certainly, to find the right match between what their customer needs and what they can make profit out of that. If it doesn't make money, it is certainly not an innovation, right? In a startup, innovation is not just about implementing creative idea. When I see all these booths that showcase their innovation here, you also need to think that it's not only about creative ideas, yeah? But you need to search ways to actually make these ideas commercially viable, or you can find people who are willing to pay for it. When we look at the business model itself, there are also differences between business models that are already in place, implemented by larger companies versus business models of startups. A company is a permanent organization designed to execute repeatable and scalable business model. And they have hard time usually with continuous and disruptive innovation. Every large company is executing a proven business model which guides an organization to create and deliver products or service and make money from it. It describes products, who is it for, what channel it sells, how they create the demand, and how they make money, etc., etc. It's their business model. Strategy, product management, organizational structure, manufacturing, and all that, they all have underlying assumption that this business model is already known and that the company is needed now simply to execute them systematically. When the business model is known, a company will organize also a bunch of goals, yeah? And then also find ways to execute actions to reach the goal, yeah? So, and then they also have their employees with a range of skills and competencies. They all have to work towards that certain goals that they have defined. In bigger companies, usually they also have larger stakeholders, not only shareholders, but stakeholders, including customers. And the pressure for them to reach those KPIs is certainly also bigger than startup companies. If you look at public companies, their shareholder usually requires certain profitability. And this is why in big companies, it's very difficult if they want to be innovative. Yeah? Most employees take the business model as given. And all they need to do is do what they're told to do. So if you work for a company, you don't have to bother to figure out what else you need to do. Basically, you just do what your boss is telling you to do. Yeah? And oftentimes they have no time to be creative. Yeah? And then to discover a business model which is new is also risky. That makes the whole company risk averse. They're afraid to take the risks. Why? Because when you do a new business model, there is a greater chance that you will also fail. And when you fail, you lose money. And if you have a company, you don't want to lose money. Remember, I know some of these people are still young here. They want to create a startup. And eventually your startup will grow, become a bigger company. And once it becomes a big company, eventually you will also be scared of trying out new things because then you say, well, I have done so much work to grow this company, and eventually when someone come up to me and propose to me a new idea, it's like, well, am I really willing to do that? Because then I will risk my profit. Yeah? So that's the attitude. You know, when an entrepreneur has a startup, you need some financial support to grow your business. Oftentimes, you don't go to banks, but you talk to investors, like angel investors or venture capitalists. But actually, most of the VCs and angel investors do not invest in your startups. You think they will invest in your startups. You think they will invest in your idea. But as a matter of fact, they invest in you because they see your quality. If you have a great idea, but you don't have the character they want, they will not invest in you. But if they see that you have an idea that is okay, but you are such a great entrepreneurial person that you just have the character they want, they will invest in you. So that means they invest in people. So do companies. But companies do have two kinds of people. They have managers and they have the so-called intrapreneurs or corporate entrepreneurs. The people who are best suited to search for new business model and conduct iterative experiments usually are not the same managers who succeed at running existing business units. If some of you work for companies here, and then you have this great idea that you want to do, you go to your boss. What would your boss likely say to you? Come on, you just do what I say to you to do and leave all these things to me and I will decide on that later. It will never happen. Your boss is a good manager. Yeah? But entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs are more likely to be a rebellious person, yeah, in a company also, yeah. Usually they don't like to follow the rules. They always question authorities, and they have high tolerance for failure, yeah. I work for a foundation, and my boss happens to be a big entrepreneur in Indonesia in property development business. our corporate culture based on three things: integrity, professionalism, and entrepreneurship, or creativity and innovation. He said the first and foremost, very important for each and every employee to have is integrity. That means you have to be honest, right? Because if you're not an honest person, then you don't have a place to work, yeah? Professional is also a very good character that you must have. But entrepreneurial, creative and innovative is a must-have. If you're an entrepreneurial person and also professional, but you don't have integrity, imagine what would that result in. It's very dangerous, yeah? Because you can be a corrupter or, something that is very dark, I would say. Anyway, but if you do have people in companies, usually they're young, they don't like to follow the rules, they don't like to listen to the boss, they always say, but, however, this and that, this cannot be done, let's do this way. These are rebellious type of people, and usually they're entrepreneurial because they like to do new things, yeah? But of course, many bosses don't like them because they are pain in the back, right? So, and then, who gets often promoted? Those people who are likely to create new ventures with new ideas? No. But those who often get promoted are the people who are good at execution, like those managers, unfortunately. Yeah? The current attempts to build corporate innovation also often start at the wrong end of the problem. It is fashionable to build corporate incubators. Some companies do. But unfortunately, it's just for the show. They say, we foster new ideas, but the ideas are just collected and nothing ever happened to that. Yeah? That's like just a theater. They call it corporate incubators. Yeah? Innovation shall happen not by exception, but as an integral part of the entire company. And to do so, a company needs innovation-related KPIs, key performance indicators. Yeah? As an example, investment readiness. That's one KPI for innovation. Yeah? These will enable innovation to occur as an integral part and parallel process to execution by design and not by accident or by exception. Last but not least, innovation is the state of mind. Yeah? Innovation is here. What does that mean? You can start with simple ideas, small. Doesn't have to be big. Because if you look at companies like, Facebook or Google, they're so successful. Or I was just telling my friend Steve here with this little mascot here, our unicorn. Sorry, Steve. I don't want to make fun of this, but unicorn for us is an animal that does not exist. It's imaginary, right? Have you ever seen this animal for real? I don't think anybody has ever seen it. But you need to create simple ideas and be sustainable with the business. And then you're an entrepreneurial person. Or I say you must be like a cockroach. You know what a cockroach is? It's a yucky animal, actually, that crawls all over places. Usually there's a lot in the kitchen or in the bathroom. But these animals are very durable. Even they say there is a bomb exploded, they will survive. That's sustainability means, right? So you have to be sustainable like cockroaches. Now, if you work for a company and you have great ideas and you go to your boss, to your manager, and it never gets through, doesn't mean that you should stop there. you have two options. You keep that idea and do it for yourself, or if you think that you can get support from someone else to do, then you do it. Because if not, the company will just never grow bigger. This is very important for you who will start a business, because oftentimes when you're a founder, you're very creative because you're young, you're very agile. But when you get older, you want to be more secure. You don't want to try new things anymore, which is natural. It comes with the age, right? But that will also make you less willing to take risks, right? If you're a true entrepreneurial person, usually you don't want to stop by just managing one business. Usually when the business runs well, you go away. You hire someone to be your CEO, to be your chairman, whatever, and then you will start something else. That's a real entrepreneur, right? Because you don't want to get stuck in a day-to-day activity, day-to-day business. Yeah? Even if you have now your own company, you will have to make sure that you hire someone who will embrace this concept. It is very important once your business becomes big that you will also set aside a small amount of budget for people to start new things, so that people can also have great ideas to be tried out. And eventually, if they're successful, it's your success too, right? But often people don't want to do that because it's just too risky, right? But if we go back to the list of the 50 most innovative companies, they become successful not by accident, but by design. Look at Apple, right? If you read all those books about Apple, about Google, about Facebook, there is some sort of a clear path how they actually get successful. They don't get successful because God wanted them to be successful, or because, I don't know, it's just by luck, by any chance, randomly, that all of a sudden it makes a boom. What most people say, I don't know, but all of a sudden everybody just start using and buying the product. Well, if it really happens, well, you can say thank God to that. But if it doesn't, then you'll be disappointed. Yeah? That is why also very important, you should never stop creating and innovating, because that's a real character of an entrepreneurial person. Yeah? Many entrepreneurs do not get successful in their first starts, or maybe most of them, because you need to experience failures. Failures are very important for you to be successful, because good ideas only come from failures. If you are successful, you stop with creating new ideas because you are already successful, right? But if you fail, you will start thinking again, what am I going to do? What shall I do? You will improve, and then eventually you'll get successful. This is very important. Right? So, I'm going to stop here. I know I'm still having some time, but if you have questions, feel free to ask. Yeah? How many of you are working for companies here? Raise your hand. Nobody. So everybody is an entrepreneur here, I guess, which is good. But if you do work for companies, it's also not a bad thing. It's not that everybody has to become a founder of a startup. Yeah? You can still be a successful entrepreneur within a company. Or you can also be a successful entrepreneur if you work for the government. Really? Yes, because government also needs to be entrepreneurial. Yeah? Let me give you an example. You know the country, Singapore, right? Singapore is a little tiny dot. It's a small country located between Malaysia, which is big, and Indonesia, which is also big. Both Indonesia and Malaysia are very rich on natural resources. But Singapore, what does it have? No oil, no gold, not even big land where they can plant rice. But how come Singapore is richer than all of us? Because they're entrepreneurial. Yeah? They know how to create values. Entrepreneurship is all about creating values, right? And if you want to be successful, you need to see what's going to happen in the future, though. What would be the problem of the future? Find the solution today, and you'll be a successful entrepreneur. Why is that? Because if you only see the problem of today and find the solution for today, someone else will come and copy your idea immediately. And then it will be very much more difficult for you to succeed because someone else has copied your idea already. But if you are able to see the problem of the future and offer solution today, which many people might think, well, I don't really need that. You know, if you remember the story with Apple, with their first, what do you call that, iPod, right? When you listen to music. I remember I used to jog carrying Walkman, right? And then you have to, I don't know, put a cassette in there, and if you have an extra pocket, then you can put also extra cassette in there. But how many songs can you put in one cassette? Maybe 10 or 12. And for that 10 or 12 songs, how long can you jog? If you jog for 1 hour, then you have to repeat that cassette again and again. The same thing with this, with the CD, right? But if you have an iPod with 1,000 songs, oh my goodness, you can jog the whole day from morning until evening, and still you don't need to repeat the same song again, right? But when people were still listening to Walkman, what is this thing, right? Well, you say, okay, this is something that I might need now, but I may not need now. Or this is something that I will probably need later. Yeah? So, but Steve Jobs has saw that problem, yeah, when others did not see it. So, this is the challenge for you. Are you able to identify this opportunity? We don't call it problem, call it opportunity that could take you to succeed in the future. Whether you work for a company, whether you work for government, whether you work for yourself, doesn't matter, right? But the capability to develop this, a sense to detect opportunities of the future, that is what is needed, right? Many entrepreneurs will only be successful once they have some work experience as well, if they have worked for a company or for government, for whatever. Because while they were working, they were actually learning many things, new things. I never really advise students to immediately create startups after they graduate. I say, go and find yourself some job first and learn. But don't just learn to do what you're told to do, but learn to be able to identify and create opportunities. Because when you work for a company, then you see what works and what does not work while you're working in a company. Remember, many entrepreneurs are successful now because they offered what we say B2C solutions. But B2C solution is actually more difficult than when you offer B2B solutions. Why? Because B2C, you have more customers. You need to understand each and every one. But B2B customers, you have less. Because eventually your customers will become your boss, right? So, and then while you're working for a company, then you see, oh my goodness, I see there is a potential of developing solution to solve their delivery problem or their supply chain or their manufacturing process which is not efficient or not effective enough. And then you say, then I can offer a solution. And then you can go to your boss and say, I have this solution, and what do you think? And eventually, if the company buys that solution, it will increase its productivity and, of course, profitability. Or if not, then you can start your own business and sell your product to your old company. Say, as a first reference, I have a solution that could be, a win-win solution for you and for your company, right? This is how it works. But again, most of the time in especially Asian culture, where we need to also respect people of older age, it's not easy when you have to talk to your boss, to your superior, to your big boss. I'm so happy that there is a pitching session happening over there on the other side of the room. But remember, pitching is not only about selling your ideas to your potential investors, but you also need to pitch to your boss. You also need to pitch to your friends who potentially could become your business partner. That's what pitching is all about, right? So, unfortunately, I don't understand what they were all pitching because it's all in Thai. But sometimes you need to be able to address also not only investors, but how do you pitch to your boss? Oftentimes we cannot speak to our own boss. Because normally boss, being a boss, don't want to hear to, anybody under his, supervision. It's like, oh, these must be all, not as smart as I am because I'm the boss, right? It's very difficult to pitch to that kind of person, right? You don't want to undermine your boss, and then he feels insulted, but you need to find the trick, which is not easy. That's why maybe they should also have a pitching session also for corporate entrepreneurs, So how to pitch to your boss, or how to pitch to your friends, because sometimes you need a business partner and you want to sell your idea. Look, I don't want to hire you because I don't have the money to pay your salary, but I want to have you as my co-founder. But what is it that you're selling? And then you have to pitch your idea, right? Anyway, all right. That would be all from my side. If there is any questions, I would be more than happy to take some of the questions. You can ask me in Thai, but I can only answer in English if someone would translate that for me into English. Anybody wants to ask question? No? If not, then maybe I should ask you a question. Anybody? Everything is so clear. Well, if I want to ask you, here, this guy behind, what's your name again? Yeah, you. Pompey? Well, okay. Are you a startup founder, or are you working for a company, or you're a student? You work for a company, a big company or a small company? Government. Wow. It's a public company, I guess, right? So it's even more difficult. If you work for a private company, it's already tough. But if you work for a state-owned enterprise, that's even tougher to be an entrepreneur, because usually they're very rigid, especially in their system. But this is also why there is no more innovation within those state-owned enterprises. That's why oftentimes state-owned enterprises do nothing but just losses, right? Because they don't appreciate people like you, young people with great ideas. They don't listen because they think they already have everything in place, right? Imagine if you work for a company like PTT, big company in oil and gas or energy, they already have everything in place. Like I said, they have that business model already been in place for years. And they have KPIs, right? There are certain KPIs you need to fulfill. If you don't, you will not get salary raise. But the question is, will you get a salary raise if you offer a new idea? They don't care usually, right? Because oftentimes there is also no channels for people to let these ideas known. I would design my talk and my presentation here not only for people who work for companies or corporations, but most importantly for people who have started up a company, and eventually these companies will grow and become big without you realizing it. But once you notice, maybe 5-10 years after that, oh my goodness, I started this business with just 2 people. Now I have 200 people under my supervision. And my company is so big, but then do I let people be creative and innovative within my company? Most likely not, because you do not provide channels for that. One of the channels that is important is, again, you need to consider KPIs for people to be creative and innovative, right? And then you reward them, because you reward all your employees based on the KPIs, based on their performance. But if you only reward performance which is standard, which is already set for you to do whatever you're told to do, there's no creativity in there. Okay? All right, so that would be it from my side. So if there's no questions, then that's fine. Or if you want to ask me questions later, that's also fine. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
เอาละค่ะกระซิบปรบมือให้กับมิสเตอร์ยูวานซานเจีย Thank you very much เอาละค่ะก็ได้นะคะเห็นวิสัยทัศน์ต่างๆนะคะเกี่ยวกับในเรื่องของต่างประเทศกันบ้างว่าเขารู้สึกหรือว่าเขามีในเรื่องของมุมมองนะคะต่างๆของสตาร์ทอัพเนี่ยเป็นยังไงบ้างซึ่งเราก็สามารถนำเอาไปใช้หรือว่าปรับข้อมูลต่างๆได้นะคะเอาละค่ะ